Hello, everyone. Once again, Liz here, filling in for Senator McMorrow this week. Today we have another special coffee hour, and this week we're joined with Moms Demand Action and Ann Anderson to talk about a couple of different things. There's been, legislation introduced in the state and federal levels, as well as recently a plan in the Senate that has bipartisan support that I would love to break down today, just to know what's in it, what agreement they have, and then maybe talk about. A lot of people have reached out to our office, via our inbox or social media, asking about what they can do in light of the recent tragedy at Uvalde. That we're feeling a little helpless, and how you can help create movement towards gun violence reform and gun violence prevention. So with that, Anne, I will let you introduce yourself and Moms Demand Action.
Hi, I'm Ann Anderson, and as the name says, and I joined Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America in 2018. Moms Demand Action was formed after Sandy Hook tragedy in the kitchen of our founder, Shannon Watts, who is amazing. And we have become the largest gun violence prevention organization in America. We are a grassroots movement. We consider ourselves to be mothers and others. So while it says moms in the name, you do not have to be a mom. You do not have to be a parent. You do not have to be female to be a member. We've got shirts for people that say man enough to be a mom. And we welcome everybody. We want to fight for public safety measures that can protect people from gun violence. We know that gun violence is preventable, and we are committed to doing what it takes to make our families safe. We consider ourselves to be we are not anti-gun. We are not anti-Second Amendment. We are not anti-gun. We are pro-gun safety, and we are anti-gun violence. And what we say about ourselves is that we are part of a movement, not a moment. And that's a really important thing to understand. These things take time, but it's not a push button, everything's going to be better. But we know the game plan. We know how to do something to make things work. We know what does work. We've seen it and watch it in other states. We do our research, we check, and we back legislation. We back gun sense candidates that will support gun safety measures. We work in the communities with community organizations that are doing the boots on the ground efforts that reduce gun violence or the chances of gun violence before they start. So things that address poverty, job insecurity, homelessness, mental health issues, all of those things. We support the community partners that do that, and we listen to them and what they have to say about what they need from us. Mm-hmm. And we also do support an educational program called Be Smart, which is out there with teaching parents how to have better conversations with themselves and how to handle better issues when it comes to gun safety and children. So we emphasize safe storage with that. We emphasize having normalized conversations with adults, a simple thing like normalizing the conversation of, do you have guns in the home before Johnny comes over? Do you have guns in the home, and are they secured? Mm-hmm. And you can have that as a normal conversation, not accusatory or anything else like that, which is something I never even thought of until I got introduced to that program. Yeah. And also part of that program is recognizing the role of suicide in all of this, because guns can make suicide a far more lethal prospect. And with particularly children and teens, it's not like they have a wealth of world experience. They just know that whatever they're going through now in this crisis is the worst. Yeah. And we want to prevent that. And safe storage, by the way, is an incredible means to do that.
Yeah, we actually had some students come to Lansing about a month ago for March for Our Lives. And a couple of the students were from Oxford and surrounding communities, and talked about, yes, we need to make movement on making our schools safe, but they were also very concerned about their friends who had mental health issues and the access to guns in their home was a big, flag for them, for us, and they really wanted to talk about that with us as well, just because they get very worried and concerned about their friends, and having the access to that makes it very, very concerning. But yeah, for those who don't know, and maybe you've listened to Senator McMorrow talk about this before, but one of the pathways and kind of starters for Senator McMorrow's journey to office was beginning with Moms Demand Action, and she joined a Capitol Advocacy Day in Lansing, and kind of sparked her run for office. So that is a very special spark to her, and she's always been a big partner of Moms Demand Action. So we're really happy to have you today to talk about some of the things that we're going to talk about, so we can get into that. Here in the state legislature, what is some of the legislation that has been introduced, and what does that legislation entail?
There's several pieces of legislation that have been introduced in the Michigan legislature, and they are not new. As in, we've done iterations of these session after session after session.
Yep.
One of them is bills for safe storage. In the Senate, those are Senate bills 550 through 553. And I believe Senator McMorrow has sponsored at least one of those. The safe storage, awesome. And this is a thing. Senator McMorrow has been an amazing, amazing gun safety advocate all along, and we are so thrilled to be able to work with her. The safe storage bill is simply, it's got nothing to do with what people can access. You can still buy your guns. You can still open carry your guns, or if you have a CPL license, concealed carry your guns. You can all do all of that legally. It has nothing to do with any of that. All it says is that if you, as an adult, knowingly leave a gun unsecured where a child can access it, and that child does access it, and then something happens as a result of that, something bad happens, you can face consequences for that. So it's literally responsible gun ownership. That's what it is. And it gives law enforcement tools to help make sure that people are safer. We know in states where safe storage laws of various kinds have been introduced that gun deaths and gun violence have gone down. So we know this is something that works, and it really isn't based on what it's saying. There's nothing really controversial about it. And then some of the other bills, there's the domestic violence bill, which we worked very hard to try and get some of the drafting on so that it would be bipartisan and acceptable to both sides. This domestic violence bill is, our concern about it is to prevent people who are convicted of domestic violence from being able to own a firearm. And just some statistics that I have here is that 70 women a month are killed in domestic violence incidents. 1 million women in America who are alive today say that they have been shot or shot at by a domestic partner, and 4.5 million say that they have been threatened with a gun by their domestic partner. So this is a big part of the gun violence pie, so to speak. And there are things at the federal level, but the federal officials aren't who goes out on a domestic violence call.
Yeah.
The state law enforcement people, the county law enforcement, the city law enforcement, that's who has to do that. And they don't have a law that allows them to do their job.
Yeah.
Do what they want to do. They know this is threatening. They know this is dangerous, but they don't have the ability to do anything. So this is what this would do. And all it's doing is bringing us in line with what already exists on federal law. Other states have done this again, and it helps.
Yeah, and I've been in the legislature for 4 years now, working as a staffer, and this legislation has been introduced by Republicans in the House. So I think what's lost in conversation sometimes is there is bipartisan solutions to gun violence prevention that are available out there and, a part of the conversation. And it's important that we do highlight that there is, bipartisanship in these conversations.
Yeah, this was definitely introduced as a bipartisan bill.
Yep.
Another one is universal background checks. That would require background checks for all firearms, not just pistols. In Michigan, people may not be aware, but a lot of the laws that we have in Michigan that come to guns are really only about handguns.
Yeah.
And firearms that are long arms are kept out of it. And so having something that extends that out is useful because, again, what's a long arm? An AR-15 is a long arm. It's not a handgun. So this is something that, it's just, again, it's not really that controversial. If you have a handgun, you're already getting a background check. If you're buying from a federal, someone who's on the federal list as a gun seller, you're getting a background check. This is not, again, an abusive thing. It should be fairly non-controversial. Another is prohibiting magazines that hold more than 10 rounds of ammunition. That's in the Senate. It's Senate Bill 785. I know a lot of gun owners, and every single one of them has said, you don't need more than 10 rounds. You certainly don't need more than 10 rounds for self-defense, because if it comes down to more than 10 rounds for self-defense, you're probably dead. So, and again, in places where this kind of law has been enacted in other states, again, it brings down gun violence and gun deaths. And the other one is red flag laws. That's been introduced again and again. It got reintroduced again into the House in February, and in the Senate in February. I mean, not the House. And that's Senate bills 856, 857, and 858. And again, Senator McMorrow sponsored at least one of those. Red flag laws, otherwise known as extreme risk protection order laws, are laws that allow people to have a legal course of action. And it is legal, so it's before the courts. There is no loss of due process. It doesn't just happen as an automatic. But it allows a method by which firearms can be temporarily removed from someone who is posing a threat to themselves or others. This is where when we talk about, mental health issues, when it comes to shooting and people talk about that, most people, if people are doing that in a time of crisis, they're normally not sending up the kind of red flags where they would be getting mental health help beforehand. So you normally have to act quickly. And this allows that to happen. And then you can come in and bring the counseling and everything else and help this person out. The story that I tell from a personal level, I was in an active shooter situation in my office building in 1999. I never saw the gunman. I didn't know anybody that he killed, but he was a person who was deeply psychologically troubled. He killed his psychiatrist, and in that shooting, that psychiatrist was aware that this person had become a threat to himself and to others. But at that time, there was no mechanism for him to do anything quickly. He was in the process of looking up his legal avenues to go and to go and see what he could do. And what he could do was basically the long process that reasonably takes time, which is the process to commit someone and get them institutionalized. This is a much less invasive process and a much quicker process, and it can save lives. And again, in areas where it's been instituted, it does save lives.
Yeah, we actually in the beginning of Senator McMorrow's term had a roundtable discussion about ERPO, the extreme risk protection orders, and it didn't involve any politicians at the actual conversations. It was, gun violence prevention advocates, as well as law enforcement, as well as gun owners, kind of talking about this. And it was a really great conversation. And we even had some legislators from the Republican side come just to listen and learn and kind of understand this. And it was a really great conversation. And I don't know if we filmed it or videotaped or anything, but if I have it, I will make sure to leave it in the comments. But yeah, there's, as you said, even at the state level, and we'll go into the federal level in a minute, but so many different avenues and options to try and help prevent some of these tragedies. So yeah, I don't know if there's any more you have to say about the state legislature.
I do, which is
Okay.
that we do have a problem in Michigan, which is that in Michigan, there, despite even some of these bills being introduced on bipartisan basis, we can't get a hearing on any of them. We can't even get them out of committee. They can't get the hearing in committee to be even considered to get out of committee, and therefore up for a vote. And that's a big deal. I see someone in the comments asking, so what's the next possible step? And I know some of what I'm here to do is let people know what they can do. What you can do is go online. If you don't know who your Michigan senator and your Michigan representative are, you can go online and find out. I think it's www.house.mi.gov.
Yeah, there's a couple different websites, and I can link them in there too.
Yeah, and there's a similar one for the Senate.
Yep.
You can type in your address and it will tell you exactly who they are and how to contact them. Call them, email them, whatever you feel comfortable doing, but tell them you support these measures and keep telling them. And if there's someone like Senator McMorrow who supports them, be sure to thank them for their support, but tell them anyway. One of the things I've learned is that you always have to contact your lawmakers. Whether they support what you want or don't support it, you have to contact them. If they support it, you have to let them know that they're doing what you want. And also that allows them to go to their colleagues and say, hey, I've been contacted by my constituents. I've gotten, thousands of emails in the last month. We need to do something on this, because that helps move the ball forward. And another thing that you can do, we've been asking people to do right now, I'm going to give you 2 phone numbers. One is Michigan Senate Majority Leader Mike Shirkey. His phone number is 517-373-5932. Call him.
Well, I was going to say,
he's the reason why we don't have a hearing on any of these. Call him and tell him, because he's promised, at least on safe storage and red flag laws, to give us a hearing, and he still hasn't delivered.
Yeah,
so
he's had promised in the past to hold a hearing. I have yet to see any notice of a hearing or any promises of future hearings. But he has come out and said he will hold a hearing on him. But again, we should, politely remind him of the promise that he once made.
Yes.
Just to ask for a hearing. A hearing is not a vote, is not a law. It's just to talk about it in a committee hearing, just to talk about the bills.
and the other number I'm going to give you is for Michigan House Speaker Jason Wentworth, because he's the opposite number to Mike Shirkey. He's the one in the Michigan House, and his number is 517-373-8962, and you can call him as well. And
I don't know specifically what
again, it's stalled. It's all
Speaker
stalled.
Wentworth has said anything, but
he has not made a similar promise as Mike Shirkey has. And so these are why I bring it up, because these are simple things that anyone can do. And you can say, I'm not a constituent of Mike Shirkey. Well, Mike Shirkey, as the Senate Majority Leader who has the power to bring these things to hearing, has a responsibility to all of us in Michigan, not just his constituents, because he's not just Senator Mike Shirkey, he's Senate Majority Leader Mike Shirkey as well. And in that, wearing that hat, you have a right to ask him. And he has to log those calls. So keep on asking him, tweet him if you Twitter him, whatever,
Twitter him.
I know it's a bad phrase. But I know some people who actually have his name in their phones and a calendar item, and they once a week send him a message. So it until he delivers on his promise and gets these to hearing. And it's a way of letting all of these people know now, and going into the election that's coming up, this matters and we're not going away, and that we're going to keep this on. We're watching you. You have to look at this. Don't look away. Do your job.
Yes. So I think that kind of
that covers Michigan.
That's the state. That's Michigan right there. So And I'll link some of the bills that you mentioned in the comments after this too. Yeah, Senator McMorrow is a sponsor of two of the bills that you mentioned for safe storage and red flag laws. So our office is involved in these movements, I guess. So that was Michigan. Let's move to the federal level. We can talk about two things. One, introduce legislation. I know the House passed something recently, as well as the Senate has come to some sort of agreed plan for some sort of gun violence reform and prevention. So let's dive into that.
Okay, at the federal level, the House passed a whole package of gun safety legislation, and I don't have all the details here. I know what some of the bills were going in, and I believe these are some of the ones that got passed coming out. So things like bipartisan background checks act. This would be an enhanced background checks act. These are bills that would beef up our background check situation. Our background checks, so people know, we require background checks, but only on some things, not on all things. There are a lot of loopholes. One of the things Moms Demand Action has been pushing for is to simply say background checks on all gun sales, regardless, all gun sales. And these acts would close some of these loopholes. There was a renewing the Violence Against Women Act, and again, that's where we have the thing about domestic abusers. And one of the things that we were trying to do there is also close what they call the boyfriend loophole, a recognition that in modern America, someone is not necessarily a spouse who's a domestic abuser. It can be a boyfriend. It can be any kind of intimate partner. I should say intimate partner because I don't want to gender this.
Yeah.
Men can be victims too. Women can be abusers. But this is to protect all victims of domestic violence. There was seeking to address the assault weapons issue. We used to have an assault weapons ban in the 90s that was allowed to lapse in the early 2000s. It worked. It worked in ways that perhaps the people who originally instituted it did not intend it to. They were seeking to address a different problem. It turned out what they were seeking actually to address a less domestic problem, a more international one. And what they ended up doing is addressing a domestic problem. And that needs to be renewed and revisited. There were some flaws in that law. We can fix those, and we can modernize it. And so this was a step toward doing that. There was also, at a federal level, an Extreme Risk Protection Order Act. Again, those are the red flag laws. So, and sometimes people will refer to them as ERPOs. So if I refer to it as ERPO in this, that's what I mean is a red flag.
Yeah.
So there was a whole package of bills on a lot of gun safety stuff that I'm not mentioning that was also involved that got passed in the House. What happened is that, of course, we know in the Senate, we did not have the votes that were going to get over a filibuster for the entire package. But what happened was there was an extreme amount of negotiating and on a bipartisan level. And so there were several senators involved in this to come up with a Senate package that they hope can get past the filibuster. And amongst the things in there are funding to help states who already have ERPO laws, Extreme Risk Protection Order laws, to help them implement them, and also funding to incentivize other states to pass similar laws.
Yeah. So it's not making any, ERPO laws at the federal level. It's just incentivizing and allowing states to create those laws should they pass them.
Yes. And that is really important.
Yep.
There's something that we've been working on for years, which is they are agreeing to the disarming of domestic abusers and specifically addressing the dating partner boyfriend loophole. There's a thing for enhanced background checks for gun buyers under the age of 21.
Yeah.
This would allow certain things to be viewed when you're considering for background checks that ordinarily weren't, and things like criminal records that the children may have, and people under 21 may have. So it's a baby step, but it's a step. There's clarification for who may run a background check. And that's because there are issues. There are people who run background checks. There are people who sell firearms that have to run them because they are the firearm seller is on the database, so they have to do this. There's other people because, like as I mentioned in Michigan, if it's a handgun, you have to run a background check whether you're a seller on that database or not. If it's a handgun, and so forth. So this is kind of to clarify that, because the more you get all of this stuff clarified, the easier it is for people who in law enforcement to have the tools they need to do their jobs. Another one is cracking down on gun trafficking. It addresses issues, including the fact that, like, people always talk about Chicago. You know, the one of the arguments that comes up, Chicago's got all this gun violence and they've got some of the strongest gun prevention laws. And it's like, yeah, and guns come over from Indiana all the time because Indiana has very loose laws, and Chicago is literally right on the border.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's one of the things. Another thing, by the way, when it comes to Chicago, just for people's reference, is that it is by no means per capita the most gun violent city. Those are reserved for other cities. It happens to have large numbers because it's got a large population. Not it by per capita, it's much further down on the list. And all of those other cities are in states and areas that have much more lax gun laws. But so the cracking down on gun trafficking, there's also investing in mental health service and access to mental health services, which I know we want to work on the guns and we don't want to have guns removed from the conversation, but we still recognize that mental health services and access is important. And one of the things that we would like to see is that money being put also, and this is something that mental health professionals have said as well, being put toward removing to working toward in the communities, so that it's preventative instead of after the fact. Instead of someone being in a crisis, let's not have people be in crisis in the first place. So listening to what communities need by way of mental health resources, so that stuff gets stopped before it can even start. And another thing is funding school safety resources. So this would be more money toward safety in the schools and training of safety and towards safety measures. It's not obviously everything that we want, and there's a lot of things that clearly are there to appease people on the other side of the aisle of this argument, but that's okay. That's what bipartisanship is about. The big thing for us is that this is huge. This is like the first time in 26 years that there's been a chance at major gun safety legislation being passed at a federal level.
Yeah.
There are people in our movement who have never, this would be the first that they had ever seen in their lifetime. So this is really big.
Yeah.
And so while it's not all the steps that we would like, it's some steps.
It's a step.
Like I said, this is a movement, not a moment. So this is one of those many little moments that make up a movement, and it's really super important. Yeah. So we support it. And one of the main reasons why we support it is because it can save lives.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like, I don't care what your politics are. We all agree that saving lives is a good thing, and gun violence is a bad thing.
Yeah.
And so I do want to admit that there's been some news in the last 24 hours, some people saying, well, we can't agree on the text, so I don't think that this bill's going to pass. And other of the senators saying, yeah, I think it's still got a good chance. So I do recognize that there's a chance it won't pass. I don't want to tell people a lie on that regard. But this is some of the most movement we've seen in a long time. And I will tell you why it's happening. It's happening because people like you out there today are calling their senators and letting them know. One of the things that we've done is we've been involved in this Do Not Look Away campaign, Don't Look Away campaign, where we're asking people to constantly contact their senators. It doesn't matter. Like Senator Stabenow and Senator Peters support what we're doing. But again, contact them and let them know you
Remind
want
them
them
that
to
it's
pass
still on your
this.
mind, still needed to happen,
keep keep up the pressure. And if you feel like contacting, say, I don't know, Mitch McConnell, because again, he's like Mike Shirkey, he's in a position, do so. Let him know. Let him
Yeah.
know that he's got to get his caucus on board for this.
Yeah.
But again, you can look up their contacts. We have an action right now. If you text bold, so text bold to 64433. If you do that, it will ask you for your zip code, and then it will get you connected by phone to your senator's offices. So we
Yeah.
try to make it easy for you. And then you can say, hey, I want you to support the bipartisan package in the Senate.
Yeah.
And because we got to keep this pressure up. We can't just walk away now. We have to let them know this has got to get across the finish line.
Yeah. And I think it's important just to state, especially with this package, it's not everything we want, but it does not, it gets a step forward. I also want to note that this package does not threaten the rights or the ownership of any responsible gun owner who is responsibly using their firearms, and just want to say it does not take away anyone's right to own a gun.
Yeah, again, we personally support the Second Amendment in our movement, and we have plenty of gun owners that are part of it.
Yep.
So it's a big thing.
Yeah. And I look at all of the emails that people send us, and we've gotten, obviously after the Uvalde tragedy, a lot of emails about people saying, I'm a gun owner, but something needs to happen. So many of our emails have signed off with like, listen, I'm a gun owner and I am a responsible gun owner, but I can't sit by and like continue to watch this happen. So we've heard a lot about that as well. But kind of piggybacking
and
off
that's
what
the
I
thing.
say, yeah.
There are responsible gun owners out there, and we know we get pull after pull out of this. They agree.
Yeah.
Responsible gun owners, by and large, agree, and that's because we're talking about things that they agree they are responsible. They do this stuff already.
Yeah. Yeah. So talking about people reaching out to us, a lot of people are feeling a little helpless and what they can do. So I know we talked a little bit about contacting your legislators, whether or not they're a partner in this fight for sensible common sense gun reform. But what else can we do to help, to be active, to be involved in this conversation? What else can myself and others that are not, working in government or just a bystander or a constituent, how can they help move this forward?
There's lots of different things that we do at Moms Demand Action.
Mhm.
And one of the things that you can do is join Moms Demand Action, because we will constantly update you on the things that can be done and how you can help to do that. And you can help as little or as much as you feel comfortable doing. When I first started, I was sitting in at meetings and I would occasionally do the action items. Okay, I'll email because they make it easy. They'll give you like a link and you can just put in your name and they'll send an email for you with the text. So you don't have to come up with the text off the top of your head or something like that. So I would do those little action items and so forth. And now I'm here talking to all of you and much more involved and, running around at meetings and going to rallies and things like that. And that's because my comfort level changed and my ability to do stuff changed. But everybody has different pulls on their time, and we recognize that. And everybody has different comfort levels, and we recognize that too. And there's something for everybody. You can do that by texting JOIN to 64433. I'm sorry, a phone call's going off in my house. We still have a landline, and that's the one we can't mute as well.
Yeah.
It's not as easy to mute that one. I've got my phone off, but not that. So text JOIN to 64433. And that will get you so that we can send you notices of our upcoming events. You can always check out momsdemandaction.org as well and find events.
Yeah.
On the political level, on the legislative level, like I said, the big thing is, first of all, keep contacting your representatives at the state and the federal level, whether it's in the Senate or in the House and let them know how you feel about this. What you can do in addition to that, is that this is an election year in Michigan. And the first thing that you can do is commit yourself to voting in every election that ever comes up that you are eligible to vote in. That includes primaries. Normally less than 25% of Michigan voters vote in the primaries. And the sad thing is, for a large number of elections, how the primaries go determine who is going to represent you, not the general election. So you need to vote in the primaries in addition to voting in the general elections and all the special elections. There is, if you go to, I believe, hang on, I have it written down because I never remember it. It's if you go to mi.gov/vote, it will take you to a page where you can get your voter information. That voter information page by the Secretary of State's office is amazing. It will tell you if you're registered. It will allow you to get registered online if you're not. It will tell you what elections you have coming up. It will tell you your sample ballot. It will tell you if your polling place changed and what the hours are, the address, everything. More importantly, because everybody's dealing with redistricting right now and not knowing which end is up on their districts, it will tell you your new districts right there. If you don't have a new card yet, which I don't, my township has apologized and said it's going to take a little while. But I know what my new districts are. And then if you go online and type in Michigan election primary candidates, like in a Google search, you will get a document that will pop up that will give you everybody who's running in our 2022 primaries. So you can find out all the candidates and then you can start doing the research on them. And one of the things that we do is, in association with some other groups, is this something called gun sense candidates. So we designate people as gun sense candidates. Mallory McMorrow is a gun sense candidate. And at gunsensevoter.org, you can go and look up your candidates by name and see if they are gun sense candidates. Now that is constantly getting updated, especially in the primary period, because people have to send in applications. We have to assess them. There's been a lot of them this year. So we might be a little behind. And unfortunately, they may or may not, I haven't checked recently, they may or may not have Senator McMorrow down in the wrong district because they have her for her old district. So I think they did have her for a while in 13, and I keep on telling her, no, she's going to be 8 for the upcoming one. So please change that. But they will tell you that she's got it for 2022. And you can go. So these are people who support gun sense legislation. And so that, we ask that people help get gun sense candidates elected. Support them in the primaries, support them in the general election, because these are the people that are going to pass the bills that are going to get the job done if we can't get it done now. And like I said, it's a movement, so we know it's not going to be done right this moment.
Yeah. And I also just wanted to say, I think the biggest part of being someone to help move this conversation is just being involved, whether it's listening to us talk today, whether it's Googling what ERPO is or ARPRO laws, whether it's joining Moms Demand Action, whether it's contacting your legislators, being involved and being educated in this area, I think is as much or as little as you can, moving it forward. It's being involved in the conversation. It's being involved in the policy. It's just keeping your eye on common sense gun reform and educating yourself and being a part of it. I think it's just the best way I keep saying being a part of it, but like be a part of it,
Yeah, this government, Republican government, which is what we have a republic,
Yeah.
is contingent on our involvement, not our
Yep.
passive, I vote and that's it, but our actual involvement. When we tell our lawmakers, this is what we want and this is why we want it. Educating yourself is an excellent point. If I didn't mention it earlier, and I can't remember if I did, um, Everytown Research and Giffords
Yep.
have huge amounts of research on gun violence all in one place. And they are linked back to legitimate studies and things like that. These are not people just coming up with talking points. They've just
Yeah.
distilled them down in one place so you don't have to hunt for them all yourself.
Yeah.
And you can check the footnotes and go to those studies if you want to look at them yourself. Just like if you want to look up any of these bills that we mentioned, you can do that online as well. But educate yourself on what they are, what the statistics are, how things have been working out. Because like I said, on some of these gun safety bills, they have been passed in states and we've seen a reduction as a result.
Yeah.
So that's another thing, is educating yourself. And like I said, join us at Moms or join another similar organization. I'll be fair. I mean, I want to be fair out there. Giffords has an organization, Gun Owners for Safety, and they are active in this area as well. And you can go online to Giffords and join that. We would love for you to join us. Like I say, we are grassroots, so we get things done because of people like you. We don't get things done without that. And locally, I'm part of the South Oakland group.
Hmm.
We unfortunately had to split Oakland into two parts, Oakland County. So it's North Oakland and South Oakland. South Oakland is south of M59 for the most part, with some
Hmm.
overlap because
Yeah.
there's no good way to draw a line. And our meeting, we have a monthly meeting that's coming up June 22nd at 7 p.m. In Royal Oak. You can find it online again at momsdemandaction.org. You have a chance to look up events. We have a demand action app where you can find your local events. And we would love to have you come out and find out more about what you can do there. And ask that you just be active, look out for these opportunities, um, and keep calling, keep the pressure on, because the only reason why we are talking about a bipartisan bill in the US Senate right now is because of people like you calling and
Yep.
calling and calling in the last several weeks. And
Yeah.
that can't stop. They have to know that until you pass that, it's still going to happen. And then
Yeah.
afterwards, it's still going to happen.
Yeah. We'll still be here.
And you
um,
guys, I just want everyone here to know that what's happening now is proof that change can happen. There were a lot of memes after what happened in Texas that there's nothing that has changed since Sandy Hook. And that's just not true. There have been changes that have happened in many states. Before Sandy Hook, I think there were only 2 states that had ERPO laws. Now there are 19 plus the District of Columbia. So change does happen. And the other thing is that more and more people like you have said, enough, I've got to do something. And we outnumber the NRA. We have the weight to bring this change about. And that's what we're seeing right now. And so I just want you guys to know change has been happening. It will continue to happen. We need you to do it, to help us do it. But I know that we can do it.
yeah. All right. Well, those are the last of my questions. So I just wanted to say thank you, and thank you for helping me talk about the wide variety of possible solutions to try and tackle the issue of gun violence here in the United States. And so what I think we've seen today is there's so many different solutions, so many different ways that we can try and do this. And it's being involved and being active and keeping not the moment, but the movement going. So if you have any last thoughts, I will sign us off.
Just like I say, please come out, see what we're about on June 22nd. That would be great. If you're not specifically in the South Oakland area, and it's South Oakland, Detroit, Wayne, actually, so it's a joint meeting. But, if you're in some other area, like I say, just look online. You can type in your zip code and it will tell you what's nearby. and join one of their local meetings to see what they're about, or reach out to one of the local groups. And we're always happy and available to help out. Again, what we do is not just legislative. If you're more comfortable with, say, our Be Smart program, oh my God, we would love you, because we need presenters. We want people to be able to share it with school boards and parent teacher organizations, that it's out there. It's a 20-minute presentation, and it's not partisan. It is done from the perspective that guns are part of our life and the Second Amendment is part of our life, but that our kids can be safer anyway. And so it's a great dialogue to have. So if you'd like to help out with that, we'd love to have you. So there's so many different ways that we can work on this. And so just please come out. Again, join to 64433, or go online and find an event. And like I said, our monthly meeting is June 22nd at 7 p.m. and it's outdoors. So COVID will be hopefully less likely to be a problem.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you to you, Ann, and Moms Demand Action for helping us talk about the movement. And I hope everyone enjoyed our casual conversation about this and learned a little bit. But I hope everyone has a great rest of their Thursday. Gosh.
It's Friday now.
Hope everyone enjoys the rest of their Friday. And with that, say goodbye.